Listen, we all know wrestling is a scripted environment, but why did fans cry when Cody Rhodes won the belt against Roman at WrestleMania 40? Why did fans jump for joy and literally scream in adulation when CM Punk returned to wrestling for the first time in 7 years, and then subsequently to WWE just a few years later? Why did the fans feel the emotion, feel the shock and awe when Undertaker lost for the first time at WrestleMania 30? Because wrestling fans love being lied to. What's going on, my little tortilla chips? Welcome back to Nacho Wrestling. And as you could tell by today's title, today's video essay, you might be a little defensive about it. You might be a little offended by it, but please do not be. This is simply me talking about why wrestling fans and why fans like me, fans like you, still enjoy the product today. You see, for the longest time, wrestling has had this misnomer of being labeled fake, being labeled not real. And while yes, it technically is those things, I'm not going to deny that, it is also just as real and just as authentic as, say, the Marvel movies or Star Wars. Because this misnomer of fake is no different for movies or no different for TV shows or no different for reality TV shows even. And don't even get me started on magicians because their whole job is to fool you and trick you. But why is wrestling treated differently? Well, unlike a magician, wrestling is not trying to fool you. It's not trying to get you to believe in something that isn't real because they know that we know, as simply as that. They know that we know it's fake. They know that we know everything from the ins and outs of the business. So many fans these days learn more about the business of wrestling than the actual entertainment aspect of wrestling. I mean, look at me. I'm sitting here right now making a YouTube video about it right now. So they're not asking us to suspend our disbelief. They're asking us to emotionally invest in the product, to enjoy what is being given to us. As much as that gif of Triple H saying, "You enjoying the show? It's all part of the show," is used as a meme these days, it's true. We do enjoy the show. We do enjoy what parts of the show we enjoy. And it's because we simply invest in it. I mean, I'm going to say that a lot this video. So if you get annoyed with the phrase emotionally invest or suspension of disbelief, maybe I'll do a counter for how many times I say it, like up here or up there, who knows. But to understand why wrestling works at its core, we have to first look at this agreement between the business and its fans. More importantly, we have to look at why the fans make this agreement before the opening bell. Wrestling is just like Broadway. Now, I know that may sound a little crazy, but it honestly is more crazy how similar Broadway or theater production and professional wrestling is. See, like a fan going to see Hamilton or Cats or Rent or whatever other play you want to come up with in your brain, there's an agreement between the fan of the play or the viewer of the play and the performers on stage that what the performers are doing, what the performers are saying, is simply their character for that night. It is not representative of who they are as a genuine person, as a genuine human being. No different than when MJF comes out to the ring and says some heinous thing about another wrestler. Sure, MJF does live his character to the fullest even when he's not directly on AEW cameras, but you think he actually wants his colleagues and his cohorts in AEW to like drop dead? No, that's ridiculous. More importantly, they're just performers doing their job. So if a wrestler does something that you really hate, don't send them death threats. Don't threaten their life. Don't do something that's brash or a little too crazy because they're just being told what to do. It's not like, they had a choice. Now, indie wrestlers, it's a bit different. You can kind of look at what an indie wrestler does and you can maybe judge them. But it's not just Broadway though. I mentioned a little bit at the top of the video how wrestling is like movies, wrestling is like reality TV, wrestling is like regular TV. It's fake, it's scripted in nature. It's no different than the Marvel movies, it's no different than the DC movies or Star Wars or Harry Potter or even fucking Love Island. Shout out Love Island. You just can't sit there and you can't watch it unless you emotionally invest in what you're seeing is 100% authentically real. And it's a lot harder, I would think, to do this with, say, a movie about a giant world eating celestial god named Galactus coming to an alternate parallel universe in a retro futuristic 60s and trying to steal a baby who's got the power cosmic, right? Does that sound real? But yet you guys still go watch those movies, right? And I don't hate comics, right? I mean, my shit's blurred, but like, look, okay? Comic books, all right? Hold on. We're having some fun with this one, guys. Comic book, comic book, comic book, comic book, comic book, Wu-Tang comic books, okay? I am not going to sit here and say that comic movies are dog shit. What I am going to sit here and say, though, is that wrestling is just like comic book movies. There are larger than life characters. There are larger than life people involved. And these people, they are characters. Rhea Ripley is not Rhea Ripley. She's Demi Bennett or whatever her government name is. You know, Roman Reigns is not Roman Reigns. He's Joe Anoa'i. Cody Rhodes is Cody Runnels. Like, all of this is not what you're not seeing these real people, you know? I don't think I can explain that any other way than they don't use their real names. A few of them do, like John Cena and everything like that, but so many of them have fake names. Come on. Like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, enjoy the ride that you are taking on, because do you really think that Hangman would burn down someone's house and not get arrested for it? Do you think all the time Stone Cold attacked Vince or attacked Eric Bischoff or attacked whoever was in charge of Raw, do you really think that he would not be arrested legit for that? No, of course not. And also, what about when Eddie Kingston hit a kid with the car in TNA? I mean, come on. You think he actually hit a kid with the car? See, wrestling fans, just like those weird Harry Potter millennials that can't get over the franchise, understand that the world around them, the world building and everything, no matter the theme park or giant experience store in Saudi Arabia, is going to make it any more real than it already is. But let's go back to this topic of why wrestling is like Broadway, because I think there's a lot more we can unpack there with the comparisons between theater and professional wrestling. This entire chapter was rewritten, and I had some help on the analogies between theater and wrestling by my good friend of the channel and co-host of Wrestle House, Logan. Thanks, Logan. While wrestling may present itself like a sport, it is very much like live theater, and more like live theater than it is a sport. Yes, of course, everything that's done within the confines of the wrestling ring, the feats of strength and everything like that, are still impressive, because these guys are lifting each other up, these girls are lifting each other up, picking each other up, catching each other, doing whatever. These are still impressive feats of strength, impressive athleticism. So it's still a sporting event, but it is much more an entertainment event than it is a sporting event. And we're going to look at that through the lens of SPAT, which is spelled out across the screen right now. So let's start off with S. S stands for space. Like theater, wrestling has a designated space, arenas or stadiums or your local indie scene where it's in a small armory or at a high school gym. Just like that, theater can be anywhere. Theater can be a big Broadway play, an off-Broadway play, or your local theater guild. Anything like that is going to have some concrete components, if that makes sense. Just like in wrestling, you kind of have to have a wrestling ring. Now, I have seen some backyard shows where they just wrestle on the grass, but they still have 4 posts and ropes. So they make a ring out of the grass, right? See, let's compare and contrast. If Broadway is the end-all be-all for theater performers, then WWE is like Broadway. And then AEW would be off-Broadway. You know, your next stop before your big break. Now, I know a lot of AEW sickos are going to be like, nah, AEW is Broadway, WWE is off-Broadway. And to each their own, you're allowed to decide which one is the end-all be-all, because everyone is allowed to like what they're allowed to like. I've been preaching that a lot on the channel. You know, like Brian Zane says, like what you like, don't be a dick. And then if the two big companies and say TNA as well and New Japan are your Broadway and off-Broadway promotions, then you have your local indie scenes that are your local theater guilds. You go and you see these local performers to hopefully one day see them make it big in off-Broadway or even Broadway. You hope to follow them through their journey. For example, I don't know what her WWE ID name is, but Arika Demia, which I think I butchered that. Her gimmick is basically My Hero Academia, which is fucking awesome. I remember seeing her at an ACCW show in Hickory, North Carolina, and when she got signed to WWE ID, I was like, "Oh hey, I know her." Not know her personally, but like I know of her, and that was cool. And same thing for theater people when they see or theater fans rather, when they see a person or an actor in a play, then they move on and they go to New York and they start doing bigger productions. They start doing more experimental productions, like on off Broadway at St. Anne's Warehouse or anything like that. And then they make it big. They do a big play in the Apollo or Radio City Music Hall. They get opportunities. The biggest difference between these levels of wrestling promotions and these levels of theater is the level of grandiose performance, the level of production value. See, WWE is in those 60,000 seat arenas for WrestleManias, for Royal Rumbles, and everything like that. I mean, hell, they had their own arena or stadium built for Saudi Arabia Royal Rumble this past year, which is still mind boggling to me. But to end off the space part of SPAT, to put it simply, wrestling is needed to be in a ring. It's a must needed component because all levels of theater have a stage. And that stage for wrestling is the ring. P is for performers. Now, this one is easy to explain. Theater has its actors and its performers who have to do a wide variety of stunts, a wide variety of talent and skill. They need to learn how to play an instrument. They need to learn how to do this. They need to learn how to do that. And it's no different for wrestlers. They need to learn how to be a bad guy. They need to learn how to be a good guy. They need to learn how to play in between. They need to learn how to take a bump. They need to learn how to give a bump. Everything like that is no different than the theater. The only difference is wrestlers don't have stunt doubles. Actually, neither do theater people. They also have to do their own stunts. Never mind. Sorry about that. I keep saying theater people. That feels derogatory. I don't know, theater goers? Theater fans? What do you guys call yourselves? But it is these feats of strength that help communicate the wrestler's personality, the wrestler's overall character. And it's also these emotions that they show within the match. You know, when a wrestler is seething during a match, you can tell, oh, he's oh, this is a blood feud. He's getting angry. He's gonna do something. You know, like when Triple H would get a smirk on his face, and then you'd know, oh, it's sledgehammer time, right? Kind of something like that. The body language is the performance aspect or the theater aspect in wrestling. You know, you get it? You get it. You got it, Jeff. And I know some people are going to moan and groan about wrestlers being called performers and not athletes. And they're performative athletes, you know, sort of like Tom Brady, you know, like that whole feud he has with Logan Paul right now. It feels very performative. But he's not an athlete anymore, so I guess he can do that, you know. Some prime examples of how wrestlers have to juggle more than one thing at a time is being consistent with their character while also being still physical or selling during the match, if you will. You know, like say a heel. A heel has to do something kind of dastardly at the start of the match, then get their comeuppance from the face, and then they have to sell and they have to, depending on the type of heel they are. If they're a chicken shit heel, you know, they're gonna stave off. Like when MJF was like, Kenny, please don't hit me with the belt, and then he low blowed Kenny, right? He's a chicken shit heel. So he used his character and he was like sweating, he was tired, he was breathing, panting, asking Kenny not to do it. Kenny didn't do it, and he used his opportunity to low blow Kenny. And of course, everything I said about body language and selling and acting like you're in pain when you're really not in pain still applies here. But there is one more thing that I think is the most important about the performance aspect of wrestling, and that is the improv. See, unlike theater, Theater doesn't really allow for cheering and booing, especially booing. They allow for cheering, obviously, like when there's a big moment during the play or at the end of the play, there's a big round of applause, but you don't hear people booing in disdain. Wrestling, lot different. They encourage the cheering whenever, and sometimes the fans don't cheer. Sometimes they boo. Sometimes they hate what they're being shown, and they're gonna show that. They're gonna make their voice heard. I don't know how many videos I've made about how I talk about how I hate this, I hate that, I'm done with this, I'm done with that. And those usually do a little better. Uh, so I'm not gonna deny that improv is a big way that wrestlers have to think on their feet. They got to come up with something new. Think whenever CM Punk or Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is actually a great example. Let's go with Cody here. Cody in AEW, his improv work wasn't great because the fans liked him at first. They really loved him. And then they started to slowly get annoyed with him. He was like, okay, I won't challenge for the world title anymore, right, guys? That'll make you love me. Wrong. It only made you hate him more. And then he never went heel. He never improvised. He never went off the beaten path a little. He was a tweener, I guess, but he never really went full heel. Hopefully that changes, and hopefully, at SummerSlam, he goes full heel and turns on CM Punk and becomes a bad guy for, would be the first time in 10 years, I think. Was he a bad guy on the Indies? I feel like he was a bad guy on the Indies. A is for audience. The audience is one of, if not the most important element to wrestling. Maybe not to theater, but I would say still to theater to some extent. Because when the fans are at their full strength, especially for wrestling, they can control the entire direction of a company if they're strong enough. Because whether it was Hulk Hogan becoming a face again after WrestleMania 18, or whether it was Kofi Mania at WrestleMania 35, or the man Becky Lynch winning at WrestleMania 35, or, I always like to talk about it, the Miracle on Bourbon Street at WrestleMania 30. Because the fans, they're not just watching, they're actually helping perform the lie along with the company. The first T is for text, and text is, in this case for wrestling, the story being communicated, the story being told in front of our screens and in front of our eyes. This could be the script for the night, this could be the match-by-match breakdown from commentary, this could be a backstage promo, an in-ring promo, a vignette, anything like that. It is part of the text of wrestling. But wrestling is not simply just fighting. There is that subtext, there is that emotional depth and value within the wrestling buildup. Look at Cody and look at everything he did with The Rock and Roman on the way to WrestleMania 40. It wasn't just two dudes fighting in the rain. Rock was saying heinous shit. Rock was talking about Cody's mama. And Cody wasn't going to just take that lightly, and it added value to the match, especially when Mama Rhodes was there in the front row for both nights of Mania. It really helped bring a little something to a build up that probably wouldn't have been as good if Rock wasn't involved, hindsight being what it is, but I'm not about to glaze the Rock. Pause. Or what about Hangman and his insecurities after losing the AEW World title for the first time, or even before the first time, his insecurities about being in a tag team with Kenny and knowing that Kenny would just drop him as dead weight as soon as a world title opportunity came over his lap. And what did Kenny do? That exactly. And it led to a great match between them at Full Gear, something that had emotional stakes, arguably one of AEW, if not AEW's best story ever, which sucks because that was during the first 4 years of the company and they haven't really been able to strike gold like that since, but we're neither here nor there right now. That's a whole other video topic for another day. I mean, shit, even the ridiculous stuff has text to it. Perry Saturn falling in love with a mop? Boom. More than just wrestling. What about Eddie Guerrero and everything he did? Being Dominic's real father, allegedly? Boom. Subtext. Emotion. Or what about all the fucking vampires in wrestling? I'm talking Gangrel. I'm talking OG Christian and Edge. I'm talking Kevin Thorne. I'm talking, I don't think he was, but what was the white Undertaker's name? Mordecai? Was Mordecai a vampire? And don't even get me started on when Vince literally fought God himself. Like, what the fuck? The amount of subtext there, a man fighting God? See, my point in bringing up the serious and the goofy is that no matter what it is, wrestling has more than just action. If you want just action, go watch a Fast and Furious movie. That's just popcorn filler. The last T is for technical, which of course talks about how technical, not technical wrestling, but how technical, wrestling can get. How wrestling and theater share a lot of production value and production skills, if that makes sense. Pyrotechnics, fog, lighting, all plays an important role, especially in the entrances of wrestlers, to make you feel this character. If Oba didn't have the music he had, if Oba didn't have the lighting he had, and didn't have the entrance he had with the strut, would people still like him? Probably, because he's pretty good in the ring. Not pretty good. He's really fucking good in the ring for a big guy, but would he be as over? Maybe not. And that's something we have to look at. Some other perfect examples of how entrances and production skills play a big role into making wrestling feel more grandiose than it actually is. Undertaker's entrance, the OG Cody Vader in AEW, and, of course, Seven in WCW. That entrance is actually really fucking cool, all things considered. My favorite example of technical, though, is how fans and commentary add something. When you accidentally get a crowd pickup of holy shit, or this is awesome, or whatever chant is annoying to you, when you hear that, it actually makes you feel something. It may make you feel annoyed that they're chanting that because it's a shit chant, but when the commentary is good too, like it's like Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross from back in the day, or today, Nigel calling a match. Like, there's just something there when the commentary strikes right. When all 5 of these elements come together, it creates a magical, more bigger than life experience for professional wrestling, similar to that of theater, similar to going and seeing a play like Wicked or fucking, I don't know, I'm trying to think of more plays to reference. I cannot. The ring provides the space, the wrestlers are the performers, the fans, even live or at home, are the audience. The text is everything that leads up to the show and that we see on the show. And then the technical, of course, is everything, the budget, everything that gets put into the show to make it bigger than what it actually is. But the best wrestling stories are not believable because every little detail feels real. No, that's not it at all. What it is that there is some sort of emotional truth inside the performance of the wrestlers involved in that story. Now, this chapter is really just to take a look at some of the examples of when wrestling felt real because there was emotional believability. There was emotional truth involved. There wasn't just a completely fake, fabricated story that we had to sit through and grit our teeth through because it was so ungodly, not believable. The first example is Kenny Omega and his road to his second AEW World title run. Now, I don't think a lot of people would call this a lie, but I would say it's like lie adjacent. Kenny always made it very clear that he wasn't sure if he would ever be able to wrestle at full strength again, let alone challenge for the AEW World title. And around a year or so ago, when he had that slow, more boring match with Okada at All In Texas, which it was still a good match because those two are really good together, but compared to their other matches, it wasn't, the bee's knees. Kenny always thought that he was on the downward end of his career, and he made it known. And he let people know that he was on the downward end of his career. Here he is now as AEW World Champion. See, I think Kenny knew he had it in him. I think Tony Khan knew he had it in him as well. And I think it was just a matter of time before they subverted all expectations. They allowed Kenny to start doing things again that he wasn't really doing before because he's, beaten diverticulitis. He took diverticulitis, hit it with a one-winged angel, and diverticulitis didn't kick out. He may not be as agile or snappy in 2026, but, no wrestler stays that agile and snappy forever. As of writing and recording this, though, Kenny's title reign is still pretty fresh, only about a week and a half old at this point, but it will be interesting to see if all roads do lead to him versus Will Ospreay at All In London this year, because that does seem to be the inevitable. And the way they're doing that now, with Will Ospreay slowly being corrupted by the Death Riders, it may be a pretty fun story to see play out on the biggest stage for AEW. Example 2. Cody Rhodes. Speaking of great liars, let's talk about Cody and his build up to WrestleMania 40. Because while I mentioned earlier in the video that Cody, said it wasn't supposed to be him, even Rock said it wasn't supposed to be him, Roman said it wasn't supposed to be him, it was so obvious that that was a lie from all parties involved, but it was more of a classic Cody lie than anything. No different than him saying, I'm not leaving AEW. AEW is my home. I helped build AEW. I'm never leaving. And then he fucking left. Like, Cody is something that I would like to look at for a brief second, and it's called the Cody lie paradox. To explain the Cody lie paradox, we must figure out who Cody learned to lie from, which I think we all know is the greatest liar in professional wrestling, my GOAT, Bryan Danielson. Except the one time I wanted him to lie, he seems to be truthful. He seems to really be retired from wrestling. See, the build up to Mania 39 and Mania 40, I believe, was always supposed to play out the way it did. I just think there maybe wasn't supposed to be that Rock element until Dwayne got his big bald ass in the way and in the mix. And then all the parties involved saw all the money rolling in, and Cody was like, well, I guess I got to keep it up and say that this wasn't supposed to happen this way. And it was just, you know what I mean? So thus creating the Cody lie paradox. Cody lies for the sake of a lie, and then he has to lie some more, lie some more, lie some more, lie some more, lie some more. It's just it's compounding on top of each other to a point where Cody is going to implode. None of this stopped people from believing in Cody, though, because Cody used the age-old trick of Dusty Rhodes is my dad, which always seems to work well for him, and it also helped that Mama Rhodes does seem like a very genuine and sweet, loving mother, so when Rock started bringing Mama Rhodes into it and talking about how, I'm going to make you bleed, I'm going to make you my bitch, and then I'm going to go see Mama Rhodes, like, it does help that Mama Rhodes does seem like a sweetheart, I'll just leave it at that. But it was all of this, it was all these lies, but this little bit of emotional truth with how Cody wanted to win it for his dad. Cody wanted to do something that his dad didn't get to do in WWE, but got to do like a couple times in WCW, I think. I don't think so, actually. I don't know. Was he NWA World Champion? Hold on. Okay, upon further review, it is obvious that Dusty Rhodes was a 3-time NWA champion, so I don't know why Cody had such a problem that he didn't win, the WWE title. Ooh, big fucking deal. Example 3, Edge. Not known for his lies per se, but on the build-up to the Royal Rumble in 2020, Edge was doing countless interviews for some odd reason, no reason in particular if we're being honest, and was talking about how cool it would be to get back in the ring, but that ship has sailed, and then people were asking him, oh, well, we heard you signed a new deal with WWE, does that pertain to any wrestling? We heard you've been seeing doctors, does that pertain to maybe coming back to wrestling? And he said no, and obviously you can chalk this up to Edge not wanting to spoil a surprise, but I think more importantly, it's because Edge wanted to have the emotional weight there. He wanted people to feel what he was feeling, and I think a lot of people did, not only when his music hit, but when we saw him. The tears in his eyes, the emotion on his face radiated not only in that 70,000 plus arena, or however many people were there for that Rumble, and radiated through the TV screens. People were so excited to see Edge back, and we had no idea. And there was emotional truth in there because Edge was very honest and open about how he would love to wrestle again and did want to wrestle again, but quote unquote couldn't. And eventually did, and now he's in AEW running amok with Christian again, which has its moments. And to be honest, if you would have told me 6 years ago that Edge and Christian are together again in AEW as tag team champions in the year of our Lord 2026, I would have told you to stop smoking crack and seek help. You see, all these stories and moments are not believable because they are 100% real. They're believable because they have emotionally true aspects in it. More so Cody and Kenny's examples than Edge's example, because Edge's example definitely was real and authentic. But whether it's Cody and talking about how he was winning it for Dusty and for his mom, or whether it was Kenny and his battle with diverticulitis, these moments are true. These moments are true, maybe not to us, but true to the performers. And that's what helps their performance feel real. That's what helps their performance feel authentic. This chapter is pretty simple. People want to believe in stuff, not just wrestling, not just pop culture, but they want to believe in the good in humanity. They want to believe that peace will prevail and prosperity among everyone will prevail, which, yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But they also believe that these stories of triumph, these larger than life examples that they can relate to, are real. I mean, simply put, people want to believe in things, not just pop culture with TVs and movies, but stories of triumph, stories of perseverance, stories of larger than life characters doing something that is just indescribable. And I think a great example of that is Santa Claus, a man that is able to travel around the entire world and run one night, all those different time zones. I mean, the longest flight in the world is like 19 hours. That's almost the entire day. I don't know how he's doing that. But yet, kids at a young age still choose to believe in them. And when those kids grow up and don't believe in them anymore, they still have hope. They still show that they care and that they believe for their younger siblings or for their younger cousins or their niece or nephew, whatever. Now, I know some of you joy killing adults are going to be like, well, I never believed in Santa Claus. My parents, blah, blah, blah. And it's not my fault that your parents fucking suck and didn't have joy and whimsy for you when you were growing up. Doesn't mean you need to take it out on the rest of us. And also, I didn't fucking ask. That being said, the world needs belief. The world needs something to look up to. Sort of like in My Hero Academia, this is the second time I mentioned this video, where they're all reaching towards Deku because Deku gives them hope, instills hope in them that they can beat All For One. It's like that, you know? The people want to believe in something or someone, and that is no different in wrestling. See, everyone at any age wants to participate in something that makes them believe, that makes them have hope, whether it be Santa Claus at a young age or whether it be you and your friends getting blackout drunk and going to an escape room. These are things that you choose to do and choose to believe that are real. To wrap this all up in a nice little bow, let's take a look back at some of my top examples of pop culture lies and wrestling lies. Of course, we have Marvel, DC, comic book movies in general, or Star Wars, or Harry Potter, like I mentioned earlier. Which the entire Cody Vengers thing on the build up to Mania 40 literally has its name from the Avengers comic book line and comic book movies. But it was when Cody finally beat Roman at WrestleMania 40 that the rest of the Cody Vengers, and Cody especially, could sit back, have a sigh of relief, and just breathe for a second. Sort of like when the Avengers beat Thanos. Yes, they had to lose one of their own, and I think if you want to give a comparison to who's Iron Man in the Cody Vengers, it's Seth. Seth literally was hobbling on one leg using a chair as a cane during night 2. So Seth is Iron Man. Seth sacrificed himself for the greater good. Or what about when Phil came back to AEW and WWE? Both shows were in Chicago, and both fan bases were just happy to see the prodigal son of Chicago come back. They were happy to see their favorite wrestler, their wrestler's favorite wrestler, come back because it was something that no one ever thought was going to happen. Just like how Luke always had faith that Darth Vader, his father, Anakin, spoilers by the way for a 40-year-old movie, just like that, he was hoping and had faith that his father would return to the light side after years in the dark. And when Taker lost to Brock at Mania 30, it felt like when Voldemort killed Dumbledore. It felt like an end-all be-all. It felt like a holy shit. This monster just killed. This monster just did something that we've never seen happen. You see, in all these examples, whether they be the wrestling or its movie counterpart, no one was being lied to. In fact, they more often than not knew what was coming. Whether it be Voldemort killing Dumbledore because they had already read the book, or whether it be Thanos losing and Iron Man dying and then Captain America returning the stones and becoming old, they knew the path that we were on. They knew that. And then the wrestling as well. They knew that, hey, Undertaker's gotta lose at some point. They knew Roman's gotta lose at some point. It was just a matter of how do we get there? When do we get there? And they, like I said earlier with The Rock, they were enjoying the ride that they were being taken on. Because pro wrestling has never been about convincing us that it is real. It's about making us forget that it isn't. Well, that is it for today's video essay. This might be my longest essay ever because we're sitting at like a raw footage length of an hour. But let me know what you guys thought about it down in the comments below. Let me know, do you like being lied to? Did this open your eyes to the fact that wrestling is a lie? Like I said, let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell to stay up to date on all things Nacho Wrestling, and I will see you guys next time.